One night Alexander was working late in his office when he noticed Emily leaving the mansion. It was almost midnight. Curious, he followed her. Emily walked several blocks away and entered a small hospital. Alexander waited. Hours later she came out looking exhausted. The next day he asked her, "Why were you at the hospital?" Emily looked surprised. Then tears filled her eyes. "My mother is very sick," she whispered. "The treatment is expensive." Alexander's heart sank. Without telling her, he contacted the best doctors in London. Within days Emily's mother was transferred to a private hospital. When Emily discovered the truth, she rushed to Alexander. "You paid for everything." Alexander nodded. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." Emily's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever shown her such kindness. Over the following weeks, Alexander noticed Emily everywhere. She always arrived early. She never complained. She treated everyone kindly. One morning Alexander entered the kitchen and found Emily singing quietly while preparing breakfast. Her voice was beautiful. She suddenly turned and saw him. "Oh, Mr. Blackwood, I didn't know you were here." Alexander smiled. "Keep singing." Emily blushed. For the first time in years, Alexander laughed. From that day, they began having small conversations. At first Emily was nervous. After all, he was one of the richest men in England. But Alexander treated her differently. He listened to her stories. He asked about her family. And slowly, a friendship began to grow. London glittered beneath the evening lights. Towering above the city stood the famous Blackwood Tower, home to one of the youngest billionaires in England, Alexander Blackwood. At just 32 years old, Alexander was handsome, powerful, and incredibly wealthy. He owned luxury hotels, technology companies, and real estate worth billions of pounds. Women across the world dreamed of marrying him. Yet Alexander was lonely. Every woman he met seemed interested only in his money and fame. One rainy evening, after returning from a business trip to New York, Alexander entered his London mansion. As he walked through the grand hallway, he noticed someone cleaning the marble floor. She was young, beautiful, and dressed in a simple maid's uniform. Her name was Emily Carter. Emily came from a poor family. Her father had died years ago, and she worked as a maid to support her sick mother and younger brother. Alexander stopped walking. For a moment, he couldn't take his eyes off her. Not because she was dressed elegantly. Not because she wore expensive jewelry. But because she looked genuine. Something he rarely saw. "Good evening, sir," Emily said politely. Alexander nodded and continued upstairs. But for some strange reason, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Years later, Alexander and Emily had built a wonderful life together. They created charities to help poor families. They funded hospitals. They gave opportunities to people who needed them. And every night, after the business meetings ended and the headlines faded away, Alexander returned home to the woman he loved. The billionaire who once had everything finally realized what true wealth was. It wasn't money. It wasn't fame. It wasn't power. It was love. And he had found it in the most unexpected place. In the heart of a poor maid. A few months later, Emily went into labor. Alexander stayed beside her the entire time. Hours later, a healthy baby boy was born. Alexander held his son for the first time. The powerful billionaire who had negotiated billion-pound deals suddenly cried like a child. "He's perfect," he whispered. Emily smiled. "What should we name him?" Alexander looked at the baby. "James." The tiny boy wrapped his fingers around Alexander's hand. At that moment, Alexander knew his greatest achievement was not becoming a billionaire. It was becoming a father. One rainy afternoon, Alexander received a call. The investigator had found her. Alexander immediately flew to the seaside town. His heart pounded as he approached the small cafe. Through the window, he saw Emily. She looked beautiful. And her pregnancy was visible. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Emily slowly stood up. Tears filled her eyes. Alexander. He rushed inside. You left without saying goodbye. Emily began crying. I thought I was protecting you. Alexander gently touched her face. The only thing I wanted was you. Emily broke down in his arms. Months of pain disappeared in a single moment. They were together again. Back in London, Alexander continued investigating the accusations against Emily. His team uncovered something shocking. Victoria had paid people to create fake evidence. She had bribed reporters and manipulated documents. When Alexander saw the proof, he was furious. You tried to destroy an innocent woman, he said. Victoria laughed nervously. I did it for us. There is no us. Within days, Victoria was removed from the company. The newspapers published the truth. Emily's name was cleared. Across London, people apologized for judging her. But Alexander cared about only one thing: finding Emily. Alexander could hardly believe what he had heard. Emily is pregnant, he asked. The investigator nodded. Yes, sir. She left London 3 months ago. Alexander's heart raced. The woman he loved was alone, carrying his child. Without wasting a second, he began searching for her. He traveled across England, Scotland, and even parts of Europe following every clue. Meanwhile, Emily was living in a small seaside town. She had rented a tiny apartment and worked in a local cafe. Every night she looked at a photo of Alexander. I still love you, she whispered. But your world is too different from mine. Victoria's lies continued spreading. Eventually, even the police began investigating. Emily was devastated. I don't want to ruin your life, Alexander. Alexander held her hands. You could never ruin my life. But Emily secretly made a painful decision. The next morning she disappeared. No note. No message. Nothing. Alexander searched for her across London. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Then one evening a private investigator arrived with shocking news. Emily had left London. And she was carrying Alexander's child. But not everyone was happy. Alexander's business partner, Victoria Sterling, had secretly planned to marry him. She wanted his wealth and power. When she learned about Emily, she became furious. A maid, she shouted. She'll never marry Alexander. Victoria hired investigators to dig into Emily's life. Soon she found a way to destroy the relationship. One morning newspapers across London published shocking headlines. Billionaire's maid girlfriend accused of stealing company money. The story was false. But the damage was done. Reporters surrounded Emily. People insulted her online. Alexander immediately defended her. Yet investors began pressuring him. His board members demanded he leave Emily. The entire world seemed against them. And things were about to get much worse. Months passed. Alexander and Emily grew closer. One evening they attended a charity event together. Emily wore a beautiful blue dress provided by the company. When she entered the ballroom, everyone stared. She looked stunning. Alexander couldn't take his eyes off her. For the first time, he realized the truth. He wasn't simply protecting her. He wasn't simply helping her. He was in love. Deeply in love. That night, standing beside the River Thames, Alexander finally spoke. Emily. Yes? I think about you every day. Emily's heart raced. Alexander stepped closer. I love you. The world seemed to stop. Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. A billionaire. One of the most desired men in England. Loved her. A poor maid. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I love you too." Alexander smiled and gently held her hand. Under the London lights, they shared their first kiss. The wedding became one of the biggest events in London. Celebrities, business leaders, and royalty attended. But the most beautiful person there was Emily. The poor maid who had once struggled to pay rent now stood proudly beside the man she loved. As she walked down the aisle, Alexander couldn't stop smiling. When she reached him, he whispered, "You are more valuable than all my billions." Emily smiled. "And you are worth more than all the riches in the world." The couple exchanged vows. Then they kissed. One evening Alexander took Emily back to London. But this time, he didn't take her to his mansion. He took her to the place where they had shared their first kiss beside the River Thames. The city lights sparkled around them. Suddenly, Alexander knelt on one knee. Emily covered her mouth in shock. "Emily Carter," he said. "You entered my life as a maid. You became my best friend. You became the mother of my son. And you became the love of my life." He opened a small velvet box. Inside was a beautiful diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Emily cried tears of happiness. "Yes." Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger.